Today's guest became a U.S. Navy SEAL in 2001 and served until 2009. He is a recipient of the Bronze Star and other awards. He received a BA in History at Purdue University and an MA in International Relations at the University of San Diego. Combat veteran and author Ben Milligan is here, and I'll speak with him next. I'm Robert Child, and this is Point of the Spear. His book is called By Water Beneath the Walls, The Rise of the Navy SEALs, and author Ben Milligan joins us now. And Ben, it's so good to welcome you back to the show because we're into season 3 now, and you were my very first guest.
Thank you, Robert. It's great to be here. I think you were my first podcast interview.
Oh, wonderful. You know, come a ways since then.
Yeah.
How is the book doing, by the way?
I think it's doing well. I mean, it's doing better than I expected. I don't know if it's doing better than the publisher expected. We're on the 4th printing. They decided to, for the listeners, they decided to extend the hardback a year, so they're not going to paperback me at a year, which I guess is good news.
Yeah, I don't know the publishing industry that well because I'm
new first for me.
Yeah, but I think that's a good thing.
You know? I think it's a good thing. They want you to stay in hardcover as long as possible, so they extended me a whole year, which is good news. So I think they were a little, when I finally handed the book back or turned the book into them, it was 5 years. It was 6 years past its due date. So
yeah,
I don't know what they expected to get. And when they finally did get it, they were like, well, this is a lot bigger than we thought it was going to be. So,
more pages is probably better, though. I would think
more page. I think a lot of readers, though. I think they were concerned that a reader was going to look at that on a bookshelf and think that that's too much. So, but it's done well as far as word of mouth and everything. It's done well with the community, which is more than I could have ever hoped for. I mean, I think the SEAL teams are particularly sensitive to books that come out.
Right.
I think there's a lot of heartburn, about a lot of the types of books that have come out.
Sure.
And when this came out, I think it was a little bit of a breath of fresh air. I think it gave guys some of the backstory that they'd kind of always hoped to get or hoped to know. And anyway, so it's going well.
Did you have to have this vetted by the Navy?
I did. Because as you know, the book is not just a book about the Navy. It's about really just special operations in general, the history of all these various units from World War II to Vietnam. So I had to go through not only the Navy. The Navy was the first to take a look at it, but they had to then do their due diligence with the Army, the Marine Corps, and CIA. So it was a lot. So they ended up, when they came back with their security review, and I kind of intentionally cut it off, at the end of Vietnam. But when they came back from the security review, they had 3 comments, and they were all, right around the last 3 pages of the book. And it was it was from the Army. The Army had said, you can't be any mention of Delta Force. It's like, there's a Chuck Norris movie made about Delta Force. So I was like, if you guys want to come after me for using Delta Force, that's fine, but I'm leaving it in.
So it's sort of an open secret that Delta Force exists.
Come on.
Yeah. I mean,
but I did what I was supposed to do. I submitted it, and fortunately it went okay.
That's good. We could talk about the book later, but I want to get back into your own experience with the SEAL teams, and wanted to get your personal take on the training and
right.
How that experience was for you.
I've been thinking a lot about training lately. I'm getting ready to be part of a tour that's going to Normandy. We're taking it's partnership with the World War II Museum and the Navy SEAL Museum. They're sponsoring a trip to the Normandy beachhead to see, all the sorts of special operations sites or operations that happen there. They've been kind enough to invite me to come along as a sort of speaker. And that every time I go back to the Normandy, my Normandy stuff, I've got a whole pile of note cards and binders down here just to my left. But every time I go through it, I can't help but think about training, because the sort of the DNA of SEAL training comes from the preparations for D-Day. The Hell Week comes from there. All these sort of team building exercises, they came from there. It was all developed by, the guy Draper Kaufman. I give, probably, one of the bigger sections of the book is devoted to Draper Kaufman and the reasons that he came up with Hell Week and the reasons he created training the way that he did, and why that training still exists today. And it's interesting to go back through that. I think there's a lot of kind of renewed interest in SEAL training lately. We've had, a few high profile incidents that have happened. There was a recent death.
Heard about that. So
I think there's increased, scrutiny as to, why they have this training, why it's as difficult as it is. And you can't help but think back, to your own experience. My own experience kind of echoes everything that's been going on right now. When I went through training, we had one of my classmates also died.
Really?
Mm-hmm. He was an incredible guy. He was the officer in charge of our class. He was John Scott was his name. He was an intelligence officer that had been assigned to the SEAL teams for a couple of years. So he was a known entity. He was well respected. He was a bit older than I think a lot of guys that go through, a bit senior. He was a full lieutenant. But when he went through, he's a really big guy. He had, he was a top performer, did really well. And then Hell Week came along, and I don't know all the details about what happened. But he made it, very close to the end. And I think the instructors were just trying to keep him in as long as they could until they could secure him and, let him roll into the next phase of training. And it didn't go the way that they had wanted. And he died during the pool exercise.
Oh, really?
One of the easier things that we had done. Yeah. And I mean, you can't help, but wonder why is training as difficult as it is. I mean, there's nothing else in the military that compares to what the Navy has put together, or what the SEAL teams have put together. Before I, started writing the book, I'd always been a bit self-conscious about anybody who ever said that SEAL training was the most difficult training. But as I went through the book and as I studied, Ranger training and Special Forces training and Marine Corps Raider training, everything. Sure. I came away from that experience and realized it absolutely is the most difficult training. And I was, I didn't understand why until I came in contact with the reason that Draper Kaufman put this thing together. It was he was creating a unit that would be able to operate in incredibly difficult combat conditions, and not just combat conditions, but combat conditions in a maritime environment, which is an impossibly difficult type of environment to do that. And then when you create, or when the SEAL teams were created in 1962, and the scope of their missions is, it's baked into the name, sea, air, and land. It's an acronym. It's, you can't have, this sort of unit unless it's, capable of, performing in all those different environments. And so the training has to be, incredibly difficult. Because you're not just looking for the type of person that can, operate in those environments, but you're also, trying to make that person a better person.
raise the bar.
trying to make him more capable, or at least, make him realize how much more capable he really is.
I hope you're enjoying this episode. Summer is a great time for catching up on military history, and my book about the 7 Black Medal of Honor recipients of World War II is out now. Immortal Valor chronicles these timeless heroes' life journeys through all the pain and struggle until their ultimate triumphs. I hope you check out the book or audiobook, which is available now in stores and online. Now back to the conversation. There must be a special camaraderie between SEALs.
Yeah, I think there is, but it's nothing. I mean, yes, and it's special, and I think it's it's exclusive, and guys want to make it even more exclusive. But I mean, it's no different than the camaraderie that Marines have, or Rangers have, or any other of these special units. I mean, they're all. I mean, when you look at them, they're all remarkable.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything special about the camaraderie that SEALs have over anybody else. I mean, I couldn't be prouder to have been part of this community, but I don't have any illusions about the contributions of these other units. They're all pretty incredible when you look at them, and especially when you see everything they've done.
Yeah, I interviewed Major Fred Galvin a couple weeks ago, and he was the first MARSOC special operator commanding in Afghanistan, and he's an amazing
I'm sure
warrior, and he led his team in Afghanistan, and he wrote a book called A Few Bad Men, which
I've seen that.
Which details how his unit was sort of hung out to dry, unfortunately, when they were just doing their jobs. Well, people watch that episode and read the book.
Oh, I'm sure. Especially, that's compelling.
Yeah,
a compelling story.
Yeah, his story was so complex. I'll use that word, that we had to make it 2 episodes, and it spread it out over 2 episodes, and he had a lot to say. So I encourage people to listen.
I wonder how that marries up, or what similarities there would be, because the MARSOC, or the Marine Special Operations, they've been renamed the Raiders. Which is funny, because when I was working on the book, I mean, my book about the Navy SEALs, it opens with an entire chapter about the Marine Corps Raiders, which they had disbanded in 1944, and then reinvigorated the name. When did they rename MARSOC?
2006, but they
renamed it the Raiders.
Yeah, they went into testing in 2003, and used the name Raiders in homage to World War II. Yeah,
because the Raiders in World War II, they have some similar. They have a similar story. They are, they're created by the Marine Corps when the Marine Corps doesn't want them, and then the Marine Corps disbands them. They send them on a mission that's practically a suicide mission, and then they blame them, for almost getting killed.
Yeah. The argument, which I can see their point, the argument is Marines are considered an elite force. Why have an elite unit within an elite force?
Right.
Their argument was that we're all elite. But, from what I understand, because I interviewed the author of a book about the Marine Raiders, and is that during World War II, the missions changed from the special ops to more conventional warfare with mass troops. That's what I understand the change was.
That's true to a degree, but as soon as they disbanded the Raiders, they ended up creating another unit that did the Raider mission. They just didn't have all the baggage that the Raiders had. And partly the reason that they didn't like the Raiders is because the Raiders were sort of forced down their throat by the U.S. Navy. And the Marine Corps, being the Marine Corps, who wants to do what their parent service tells them to do?
Yeah.
So.
And it was not a pet project, but it was spearheaded by FDR.
Right. And it wouldn't have happened without Jimmy Roosevelt. I mean, Jimmy Roosevelt was using all these back channels he had because, I mean, he'd been Roosevelt's chief of staff. He was a Marine Corps Reserve officer. So he was using all these connections to, end run around the chain of command. And, he did that with Holcomb. With Holcomb, Holcomb couldn't help but help Jimmy Roosevelt out. Mm-hmm. Holcomb, the son, would not have been able to walk if it hadn't been for Jimmy Roosevelt opening up the White House swimming pool for him.
Oh, wow.
So there was all these weird connections between Holcomb and Jimmy Roosevelt and FDR and Carlson. Carlson had been assigned to Warm Springs as a sort of Marine Corps liaison when FDR was constantly going down there for rehabilitation. Yeah. Anyway, that's a
different story.
Yeah, different story.
Yeah, but that brings me to another section I want to talk about as far as missions and SEAL missions. Mm-hmm. So, since you studied the history of SEALs and are, essentially an expert on their service, from the time you entered, I know it was different in the 60s, but from the time you entered the early 2000s, have the missions changed today?
Yeah, I mean, when I checked into SEAL Team 4 back in 2002, mm-hmm. I mean, the preparation for deployment was probably pretty similar to what it is now. I mean, it seemed to be equal parts maritime training and land warfare training. I mean, if we weren't, doing some sort of urban warfare, land warfare scenario with a significant, assault component to it, we were, doing some sort of maritime training. We were pretty often in Chesapeake Bay, driving around rubber boats or down in Florida or something like that, and somehow rolling into a dive profile or something like that. Now, later, as the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, developed, a lot of that maritime, expertise was left to wither on the vine a little bit, just because, there wasn't much use for it at the time. We're operating in mountains and deserts and towns and things like that.
Right.
I think we're, shifting back toward that. The sense that I get, the one really neat thing that I've, as the book has allowed me to do, is to kind of reconnect with some of the teams that are, preparing to deploy, and I've been able to go and talk to them. And the sense that I get is that they're, there's a real significant push to get back into the maritime.
Okay. Yeah.
Area of operations. Well, I mean, we'll see if that holds. I mean, the enemy always gets a vote. I mean, it depends who we or what the next challenge is. I think anybody that thinks that we're going to completely shift away, or the SEAL teams are going to completely shift away from some sort of, land focused, operations, I think is, probably, not right. If you see everything that's going on in Ukraine, I mean,
yeah, very true.
What is my favorite quote by Clemenceau at the beginning of when he was talking to Churchill. Churchill was the first Lord of the Admiralty, and Churchill at the time was, convinced that the First World War would be won at sea. Clemenceau tells Churchill, remember, Napoleon was defeated at Waterloo by Wellington, not at Trafalgar by Nelson. So, I mean,
very true. Very true. Yeah, it's. But I agree. There's going to be always the maritime component because.
Yeah, but operations are sequential, and the reason that they ultimately, disbanded the UDT and folded the underwater demolition teams into the SEAL teams is because the Navy realized that UDT and SEAL operations were sequential, not concurrent. So any underwater demolition or mission, the reconnaissance of beaches, the destruction of obstacles, the movement of raiders from ship to shore, that's going to precede any sort of invasion. And SEALs can do that mission, but once that mission has been completed, the idea is now we're ashore. that maritime component is, complete or has, taken place, now the SEAL teams, are, the Navy, we have to remember the Navy created the SEAL teams. So the SEAL teams didn't create themselves. And the SEAL teams were created because they provided the Navy with all these opportunities ashore, once that conflict had moved inland. They provide opportunities for Seabees, intelligence officers, naval guns, naval aircraft, all these things. So the Navy, the SEAL teams are almost like that harpoon that you cast ahead, and then you have all the excuses for the Navy to continue to be involved.
Sure.
So
on another topic, and you may not know about this or found out much in your research about this, but I was curious about the Space Force, if they're going to develop special forces, or if the Navy SEALs are actually involved with Space Force, because that's another
great question.
Territory.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. My kids would love to know.
Oh, really?
They play enough Halo.
Oh, yeah. I just finished watching the series Halo, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I have a great interest in space.
Oh, yeah, me too. Me too. I got to talk with Johnny Kim recently, who's the SEAL astronaut. He was the SEAL Team 3 operator that became a Harvard-trained doctor, and then now he's an astronaut.
Quite a resume.
I mean, a fascinating person. He has an incredible story when he finally tells it. But I also got to talk to Andy Weir, the author of Project Hail Mary and The Martian. Mm-hmm. That's another, fascinating guy. His books are incredible.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's it's something we can wonder about, if the SEALs are going to move into space.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, where the SEALs have been, connected to the space program for a long time. UDT 11 was attached to the Apollo program, so all the astronauts that were landed back in the ocean, they were picked up by UDT 11 frogmen.
Yeah. So there's a connection there.
There is, yeah.
Well, the book is called By Water Beneath the Walls, A Rise of the Navy SEALs. And Ben, so wonderful to have you back.
Thanks so much for having me, Rob. It's great.
That's it for this episode. Thanks so much for joining me. And if you like what you hear, leave a rating, a review, or just click the follow button. You can find me on Twitter @RobChild. I'm Robert Child, and this has been Point of the Spear.
Music licensed from audioblocks.com. Point of the Spear is produced by RSC Media Group.